There is no transformation in Ben 10 that has had a strong yet convoluted of a legacy as Alien X. Deemed Ben's most powerful transformation, he's everyone's first thought when considering Ben's capability. Since 2007, I've played a hand in giving Ben 10, and by extension Alien X, a more prominent reputation than he's had before. And I would say these efforts were very effective. My first official video on Ben 10, pinning him against other heroes like Superman and Goku, has accumulated over 6 million views over the years, presumably over the ambition to counter my points in favor of other heroes. Before Alien X's reputation skyrocketed, Ben 10 was often disregarded in these discussions, supported by the ignorance of the majority of people not watching the series past the first installment, Ben 10 Classic, which first premiered in 2005. Many believed him still to be 10 years old and have other irrelevant limitations, lack of knowledge about Ben's true Omnitrix capabilities, like his Master Control feature, going ultimate, and the life preservation failsafe. Since the release of that video, I've been very fortunate to grow my channel with a dedicated audience, building my team of talented individuals, and expand into other mediums like webcomics, animations, and live streaming commissions. To celebrate the growth of the ink tank on YouTube, I am taking things back to the roots and revisiting the controversial topic that started it all. How powerful is Alien X? You may be thinking, haven't I already done this? The short answer is yes, but never to a full conclusion that I've been satisfied with. The original Ben 10 video does mention Alien X, but it lacks a deep dive into his feats and capabilities. My History of Alien X video, while informative, has since been taken down, much to my abhorrence, although I wasn't very proud of the editing in that video anyways. And while he is brought up in other videos, he has yet to be the main focus again. With 400,000 subscribers under our belt now, I feel it's time to take one more look at Alien X, and really do it right this time. The video should be absolutely everything you need to know about Alien X. Everything I've said about Alien X before, well, you can just ignore it, because it will either be reiterated in this video, or there is additional information. Aside from my recent breakdown of his debut episode, I'd say that video is still a good watch. I will start off by going through every single episode appearance, pointing out all of his different feats, and with the help of Skye from the Jimineris channel, power scaling as many of them as we can, so you'll know exactly where every move lands. The information doesn't stop there, as I won't only be pointing out feats, but notable bits of trivia, some slices of lore, interesting facts about his species, his vulnerabilities, basically anything and everything that's worth mentioning, I'm going to point it out. I will then move on to talking about supplementary information, such as his appearance in video games, statements from the writers and crew of Ben 10, Atomic X, Skirt Celestial Sword, and finally, going over the reboot's version of Alien X, and Alien V, the fusion counterpart of Vilgax as well. When I said everything, I meant everything. Now, scaling Alien X has a lot of contradicting factors when using additional media and writer statements. Each era of the Ben 10 crew has had their own interpretation of Alien X, so we will be dividing their statements into 3 categories: Alien Force and Ultimate Alien statements, Omniverse statements, and finally, Man of Action statements. For the sake of this video, we're gonna scale each writer's interpretation of Alien X separately. While it would be nice to consider all of the writer statements as one continuous entity, there's too much contradiction between the writers to treat anything said as solid fact. So this will leave us with 4 versions of Alien X Prime. Number 1, Absolute Canon, all of Alien X's feats and scaling strictly based on what happens in the show. Number 2, UAF Canon, Alien X's screen time combined with statements from the UAF crew. Number 3, Omniverse Canon, Alien X's screen time combined with statements from the Omniverse crew. And then finally, Man of Action Canon, Alien X's screen time combined with statements from the Man of Action crew. After we have those 4, we'll delve into the nitty-gritty and the reboot stuff. If that's confusing, well, it'll make sense by the time the video's over, so stick around and prepare for one hell of a cosmic ride. Skye, you ready?
Hey everyone, Skye here. I've been wanting to work on a dedicated Alien X video for a long time now, and I've been researching for this ever since I started my power scaling series forever ago. I haven't posted anything in a really long time due to personal reasons, but you can check my channel at Jimineris Entertainment.
Now, let's get into it. Before we get into his specific appearances and feats, let's break down the basic idea of Alien X and how he operates. Reality alteration. Alien X can reshape reality, mainly time and space, to his will. There has not been many limitations shown to these abilities, and given that he exists outside of his present universe, and was in fact born in a completely different plane of existence, he is unaffected by anything lower than his base power level. Multi-consciousness. Alien X is made up of 3 personalities that communicate in a pocket dimension that we will refer to from this point forward as his mind space. Although it should be noted there is no given canon name for this void, I just needed to call it something.
Quick, how do I make something else happen?
You are one of 3.
Weren't you listening?
Inside the void, we have Bellicus, the voice of rage and aggression, Serena, the voice of love and compassion, and Ben, who is the voice of reason. Activation through deliberation. To use Alien X, the 3 personalities must come to an agreement in order to execute any action. This puts Alien X's powers in check, and due to his immense power, every action must come with approval by these 3 perspectives of morality. Although it is still possible for Alien X to do something even if it goes against up to 2 of the 3's moral standpoints, as long as they approve the action. For example, Ben was able to convince Bellicus and Serena to agree to approve the motion to switch transformations from Alien X to Swampfire, even though they were personally against it.
Just let me out of here. I got 9 other guys who can do it better.
That's hurtful.
So their moral standings are more of guidance to the decision factors, and not an absolute truth. As long as the 3 personalities approve an action, Alien X can do it. Also, quick note, since Alien Force and Ultimate Alien are more or less the same series, just different sagas, many fans combine them into the name Ultimate Alien Force, or UAF for short. This is important as I'll be using that nickname throughout this video. When Alien X speaks out loud to others in UAF, he speaks with all 3 of his personalities' voices at once.
Alien X, seconded, water-stopping motion carry.
In Omniverse, he speaks with his own unique voice by Yuri Lowenthal.
Alien X is awesome. Told ya.
In the reboot, he also has his own unique voice, this time voiced by Fred Tatasciore.
Your heroics are mildly more impressive than others, Ben Tennyson, but ultimately futile.
Now, let's dive into all of Alien X's appearances in the show and break down all of his moves.
Time as any to give this one a try.
Alien X first appears in the Season 1 finale of Alien Force, titled X equals Ben plus 2. The decision to use him was an impulsive choice, as not only has Ben never used Alien X before, he had no idea who Alien X was and what he can do. Interdimensional time manipulation. Upon his very first transformation, Bellicus and Serena were able to introduce themselves to Ben, explain the basics about how Alien X works, and then deliberate on how to stop the water from overflowing the dam, all instantaneously. This explains how they were able to immediately reverse all of the destruction from the broken dam, as Ben, Bellicus, and Serena's conversation took place outside of time. However, this is something that Alien X can decide to do, as from that point onwards, all of Alien X's Mindspace conversations take place in the episode's real time.
Hello? Anybody home in there?
This is because, at first, Bellicus and Serena were going easy on Ben, and allowed their first conversation to take place outside of time for optimal discussion. But before that, they wanted Ben to earn his place as part of Alien X.
Alien X doesn't do anything until it's put to a vote. We've already cut you slack because you're new.
Isolated time manipulation. Moving on, once the time deliberation happens, as stated before, Alien X reverses the damage done by the dam busting open. Although Alien X isn't simply rewinding the time stream, but a specific pocket of time. Alien X is reversing time only on the dam and nothing else, as the bystanding characters are able to witness these events and are not affected by it. This shows that not only can Alien X manipulate time, but he can choose specifically where it happens and for how long. Partial consciousness survivability. Every standard celestial sapien has 3 personalities to deliberate action, but without Ben, Bellicus and Serena are apparently powerless. As stated by Serena, she and Bellicus have been locked in eternal argument without Ben's aid to break the tie.
Until you showed up, Alien X was always in a deadlock, but now we've finally found a tiebreaker.
This also suggests that the two are doomed to always disagree, unless a third party can convince them otherwise. While this is obviously deemed as a weakness, it does demonstrate that Alien X can exist without its three personalities, so should one be removed or even destroyed, Alien X can survive it. It is also suggested that Alien X is able to perform actions with only the present personalities, even if one is missing, but due to Bellicus and Serena's argumentative nature, it is never shown or proven.
That's new business, kid. We still got old business from before you showed up.
If we take the statement that Bellicus and Serena have been locked in eternal argument literally, it would be safe to assume that Alien X is effectively immortal, which makes sense if he transcends time and space. But it's important to note that within fiction there are multiple kinds of immortality, which the Versus Battle Wiki have broken down into several different types. I believe this qualifies as Type 9, Transcendental Immortality. But not only do celestial sapiens transcend time and space, they also transcend the entire multiverse.
Omnitrix independent consciousness / existence. The fact that Bellicus and Serena have been locked in eternal argument suggests that they have existed before Ben had used Alien X. Serena states, "Before you showed up, Alien X was always in a deadlock." They also constantly state opinions and conversations they've had pre-Ben, making it seem that Alien X has existed as an independent being long before Ben, something we have never seen before. Some scenarios have come close, but still, none of these come close to the level of independence that Alien X appears to have separate from Ben's own use of the alien. This is also the only transformation where Ben practically pilots an external body to use Alien X, rather than directly becoming the actual being physically. This also raises the question of how exactly Alien X was able to exist before Ben, and if he truly did, or if he is simply a replication of a DNA sample from another celestial sapien. In which case, well, where's that one? But none of these questions are ever answered, and that is probably for the best.
Because the fact that Alien X exists separately from Ben Prime, or any Omnitrix user in the multiverse for that matter, he'd likely be unaffected by Ben himself getting killed. Even ignoring his transcendence above time, godlike powers over time, and the Soda Bro effect, killing Ben in the past does nothing against Alien X in the present. Because of the fact Alien X exists outside of time, including his mind space, I don't think Ben would even be affected in any way from his past self being erased. I would like to note, however, that within Ben 10, time travel typically results in branching timelines, so killing him in the past should do nothing to Ben Prime in the first place.
Makes sense now? Not even a little bit.
The only thing you'd accomplish is making a new timeline without a living Ben. This is, however, mostly speculation.
Inherent omniscience. While most aliens Ben becomes are created upon the initial transformation, and thus, if there was any form of sapience, it would only happen from that point forward, Alien X is able to be aware of events far beyond his own existence.
Pluto wasn't a planet. It was a dwarf planet.
This is revealed with their countless information of events outside of Ben's personal knowledge, something on a long list of millions of proposed debate topics that have apparently already existed way before Ben ever first became Alien X.
I would like to vote on tabled motion number 80,000,003 to save the dinosaurs from extinction.
To be clear, I'm not saying Ben isn't aware of the fact that dinosaurs exist. I'm saying that Bellicus and Serena have had countless debates already, completely without Ben's knowledge or consent, even though this is still the first time Ben has ever used Alien X. While so far, there isn't anything Alien X has shown to be ignorant of, there's no definitive proof that Alien X is undeniably fully omniscient. So while it is possible, we are lowballing it with inherent omniscience to maintain accuracy, although a case can be built otherwise.
And while Ben himself isn't necessarily aware of what Alien X knows, he does have access to that knowledge. Celestial sapiens need to know seemingly everything, throughout space and time, of which we know there are at least 17 spatio-temporal dimensions fully mapped out on the map of infinity within the Ben 10 multiverse, as well as at least 10 more dimensions beyond that, if not more. Some time ago, I created my own intelligence tiering system on which Alien X would rank as a level 11, nigh omniscient. Paradox, for comparison, would rank as at least a level 10, deific genius, and Azimuth would rank as a level 9, hypergenius, which is a rank above a super genius. A link to the full explanation of my intelligence tiering system will be in the description below.
Intuitive aptitude. Alien X is able to follow commands, despite how vague they are. This is the opposite of a genie-type character, where unless you are ultra-specific and do not include any loopholes in your wish, you'll get screwed over. Alien X was able to grant Ben's desire to know what's happening with his friends by creating a portal to show the events happening outside of Alien X's mind space. Now, this may seem like a simple feat, but Ben did not specifically say, "Create a portal so I can watch my friends," as if they were on some type of cosmic television screen. He just said,
I want to know what happened to my friends.
and there's a number of ways this could have gone. In fact, Bellicus and Serena could have simply told Ben what was happening and leave it at that, but they were able to problem solve and give Ben the solution most satisfactory to what he needed. It would be like telling a waiter vaguely to, "Please get me some food," and they return with your favorite meal. So Ben can be extremely vague with his demands, but Alien X can still carry out the task to his desire. Omnitrix Override. At this point in Ben's story, his current Omnitrix still has a time limit, and Ben is able to run out of power.
After so many quick changes, the Omnitrix shut down to recharge.
Bellicus and Serena are still refusing to help Ben in any major way, as, simply put, they're just very argumentative people.
You mean the Earth is safe?
No. How'd you get that?
To continue their banter, they refuse to allow Ben to transform back to human, even though the Omnitrix's time limit should have well expired by now. This isn't something that is unique to Alien X, as sometimes the Omnitrix itself prevents Ben from changing back to human, usually to protect him, or simply because it is broken. But Alien X appears to be the only transformation that can do this with any version of the Omnitrix.
Got that, genius? You're never changing back.
Alien X being able to manually lifeform lock himself means that he can prevent most others from being able to forcefully change him back, though there are exceptions to this, as we'll see later.
Involuntary heat generation. This isn't exactly a feat, but it's something I thought was neat enough that I wanted to point out. Despite being a multi-dimensional being, Alien X apparently gives off heat, as noted by Kevin in this scene.
Maybe he's hurt or...
Nah, he's warm. Maybe he's resting.
Now, this doesn't actually mean anything, but I find it interesting that Alien X naturally gives off heat, similar to how mammals and birds self-regulate their heat in different environments by keeping their metabolic rate high. This, tied with the idea that Alien X must have some form of DNA in order to be Omnitrix obtainable, are nice reminders that Alien X is extremely close to being a straight-up god or deity, but is still, in fact, a living creature. Average Homo sapien weight. It is also worth noting that Kevin is easily able to lift Alien X, suggesting that Alien X isn't all that heavy, and if anything, slightly heavier than an average adult male, although no one is able to bend his limbs and change his body position. Universal ranking. In his debut, Alien X is referred to as both,
We are one of the most powerful beings in the universe.
and
We're the most powerful being in the universe.
while the implications of this specific wording contradicting each other was probably not considered by the crew developing this episode, as, let's face it, these quotes were never written to be taken as seriously as we're doing right now, but it is still a valid statement that Alien X outclasses seemingly every other being in his present universe. Although, we will later find out that it is much, much grander than that.
It goes without saying this makes him incredibly powerful. Any other transformations or characters within Ben 10 canon probably places below him, including the Dagon. The only character I'm not 100% certain on would be Paradox.
After this episode, Alien X is not used for the remainder of Alien Force.
Alien X can do anything.
Only if Ben can convince Alien X to cooperate.
He finally returns halfway through the second season of Ultimate Alien for a brief cameo. It is revealed that, since gaining the Ultimatrix, Kevin has made modifications to where Alien X is only accessible when using two special keys in Kevin and Gwen's possession to prevent Ben from accidentally transforming into him during battle, or allowing Albedo to use this transformation. This is the one and only time we see this failsafe, and when Ben eventually gets the official Omnitrix, these keys are no longer required. While Alien X himself does nothing in this episode, we learn a lot about the history and lore of Alien X, and even visit his homeworld, giving us more insight into how his transformation operates beyond Ben's own universe. Levitation. The first thing we see Alien X do is pretty simple. Alien X levitates off the ground freshly after Ben transforms into him. Alien X did not do this last time, so this could be a sign of either an increase in power or control, although this is likely just an aesthetic choice, as he looks pretty cool floating there like that. Continued Omnitrix independent consciousness / existence. Although this was covered previously, I want to continue pointing out the narrative that Bellicus and Serena are still aware of external events even without the need of Ben activating Alien X.
I know he hurt your feelings when he abandoned us. He hurt mine too.
They both feel abandoned by Ben, as Ben has rarely ever used Alien X since his introduction. It is unknown if Ben has never used Alien X period since the incursion incident, as their behavior seems to imply, while other characters seem to be very aware of Alien X, even developing his own legends across the universe that Rook was aware of. Rook being from a nearly technology-less planet, and there's also the Mr. Smoothie chain of alien cups that have a literal picture of him on there. Either way, Bellicus and Serena are not happy with Ben's reluctance to use Alien X.
Motion to ignore him for 1,000 years, at which point we set him on fire for a second 1,000 years.
Involuntary intrusion of mind space. While the void where Bellicus, Serena, and Ben debate to use Alien X is never identified, it appears to be an actual place one can visit, as Professor Paradox was able to teleport inside of there against Alien X's wishes.
Hello! Professor Paradox?
While this may not prove it is a physical place that one can travel to by some sort of spaceship or vehicle, it is real enough for Paradox to find some way to interact with it. Even if this was all just some visual representation for the audience, Paradox is able to become a part of that representation. It should also be noticed that Paradox's own full capabilities and limitations have never been shown, and Paradox appearing here is by no means any common ability. Paradox is a unique being, and is the only character in Ben 10 to truly demonstrate allegedly infinite capabilities. He has stated that there are things he cannot do, but from my own speculation, this appears to be out of moral obligation and some sort of council of rules, and not his own inability.
Time Walker, you are not welcome here.
I'm not supposed to go within 500 light years of them.
In layman's terms, having a sword and choosing not to use it is different than not having a sword at all. For example, it is stated in this episode that Paradox isn't allowed within 500 light years of another celestial sapien, but proceeds to do it anyways. Twice. Paradox was even the one to create the keys that hide the Forge of Creation away from the multiverse. Paradox seems most interested in preserving the natural narrative of each universe, rather than taking control with his own power.
There are rules. I cannot interfere.
Aren't you already interfering?
Touché.
But if I were to elaborate further, Paradox himself well deserves his own dedicated video to really understand the character. But I wrote this tangent to emphasize that Paradox doing this shouldn't be considered a standard disadvantage of Alien X, as it would take seemingly unfathomable knowledge and power to do this. But it happened, so it deserves a mention. Oh, and Paradox is also able to change Ben back to human form out of Alien X 2.
You made me change back?
The effect for this ability is also the same one that Ben initially transformed into Alien X with. Whether or not this means anything at all, well, it's open to interpretation. Reality border transcendence. As revealed in this episode, celestial sapiens are born in the Forge of Creation. It resides in another dimension outside of any other perceivable one, protected by a chrono-randomization barrier, making it out of sync with all of time.
Totally inaccessible. Unless, of course, you're me.
It can only be accessed by celestial sapiens, Professor Paradox, or anything that Paradox has shared his power with, such as Team Tennyson temporarily, or the pieces that make up the map of infinity.
Then we can't be killed?
You most certainly can.
Fun fact, the Forge was partially inspired by the Pillars of Creation, a photo taken by the Hubble Space Telescope in 1995 of interstellar gases in the Eagle Nebula. It is made visible by evaporating gaseous globules, or ironically eggs for short, which incubates new stars. You can see the Pillars of Creation hidden in the background when the Rust Bucket 3 first arrives in the Forge of Creation. This is merely an Easter egg, as realistically the Forge is impossible to view from Ben's universe.
Agrigor intends to absorb a newborn celestial sapien. He will become omnipotent.
The only valid weakness against Alien X so far is his actions must be deliberated before being executed. Although, when born, a celestial sapien only has one personality, thus is unable to be deadlocked. This was established when Agrigor's plan was to obtain all 4 parts of the Map of Infinity, travel to the Forge of Creation, and absorb a baby celestial sapien, thus granting him, in Paradox's terms, omnipotence.
Omnipotence is a term that's often thrown around in fiction, so this is likely just hyperbole and not literal. However, I believe that since it is Paradox stating this, as powerful as he is, I think it's worth noting.
Massive size/size alteration. Another small but notable feat is that celestial sapiens naturally are gigantic, some seemingly able to tower over way big easily. Alien X is noticeably much taller than any other human, but not nearly this size. This could either be attributed to Ben being a much younger celestial sapien, as the Omnitrix scales Ben's aliens to whatever age he is. Although, given our deductions on Alien X's inherent omniscience and Omnitrix independent consciousness/existence, this may not be true for Alien X specifically.
The fact that Alien X's size is much smaller than an average celestial sapien is probably just for convenience. But if we turn our attention to a future episode for a moment, all celestial sapiens in Omniverse also appear to be about Alien X's size, or slightly larger. It could be reason that celestial sapiens are only this massive when present in the Forge of Creation, though we later learn that celestial sapiens can in fact change their size regardless, as shown with the Galactic Gladiator, who grew even larger than these celestial sapiens in the Forge, towering over entire galaxies.
The multi-galaxy size is only an estimate, as it is hard to determine an exact scale when concerning the cosmos. But these swirling graphics here match the same illustrations used to represent galaxies and solar systems previously in Season 1 of Omniverse, when Alien X was remaking the universe. Erasure. While this can be categorized under reality alteration, which we have already covered, a common quote among the Ben 10 community is a line spoken by Kevin in this very episode.
They could just blink and we'd be gone.
I felt it was appropriate to emphasize this point, as Alien X can indeed wipe out another being, or anything really, from existence without any effort.
We learn later on that celestial sapiens can and often do alter things on a multiversal scale. Alien X could effortlessly erase a person, even a powerful one, in one timeline or all of them, including the memories of them, conceptually removing them from existence.
Offspring creation. Keeping in mind that celestial sapiens are a species, they are equipped with the ability to make offspring. It is unknown if this is them simply creating another being using their power over reality, or if there is some actual form of reproduction.
The Forge of Creation is where celestial sapiens like Alien X are born.
Both Paradox and Azimuth do use the word born when talking about celestial sapiens. And since they start off as babies and then age, this does suggest some form of reproduction, in addition to their creation powers, is required. But understandably, this is kept vague. Multi-dimensional hierarchy. While the team are aware that they can be instantly erased, this is only if the celestial sapiens deem it worthy to do so. Given that the final battle takes place on the palms of a mother celestial sapien, and she, nor any surrounding spectators, ever choose to interfere, even when Agrigor was just about to absorb one of their own kind, it makes you think about what actually matters to them from their perspective. While Agrigor becoming part celestial sapien and presumably obtains all of their powers and abilities, this is a clear universe-ending scenario for the team, but it isn't worth any sign of interference from the celestial sapiens themselves. Perhaps they knew everything would be okay in the end, but it's incredible to think about how all of this is so minuscule to them, and what other, more important matters they are attending to. After this episode, Alien X is once again never used for the remainder of the series, although he does create a legend among the universe. Many creatures have heard about Alien X by now, including Rook, but due to his limited use, they do not believe he actually exists, and Ben is reluctant to prove it to him.
Alien X is real.
He is? Change into Alien X right now.
I'd better not.
He finally makes a return in the first season of Omniverse to help with the destruction of the universe. But first, some quick backstory.
The Annihilarg is just an old legend, like Alien X.
Oh, it's real, alright.
So's Alien X.
There was an ancient pan-dimensional civilization called the Quantumelia. They've had this device called the Annihilar Genesistoria Fimiagost, or Annihilarg for short. In a blank dimension, the Annihilarg can be used to create a brand new universe. But if a universe already exists in that dimension, the Annihilarg will destroy it. The Quantumeliad would often visit universes for fun and mess with the locals, and use the Annihilarg to destroy a universe if they end up not liking it. Since then, an abandoned and unoccupied Quantumelia ship has been floating around the universe, with a functioning Annihilarg on board. Ben and Rook, along with various enemies, all fight to take possession of the Annihilarg for their own gain, but accidentally set it off, destroying their universe out of greed. Universal base durability. When the Annihilarg was accidentally activated, it destroyed Ben's entire universe, except for Ben, who had transformed into Alien X. This situation shows that Alien X's durability is at least universal by default, as Ben wasn't even sure the universe was being destroyed to begin with, and yet he was able to survive.
Wait, the universe really is being destroyed?
But a bit sad to see them go.
Interestingly enough, you can see the galaxies being ripped apart as the universe is destroyed while Ben is inside his mind space, suggesting that the void is still part of the universe, but existing on a different plane, although this is pure speculation. This can also simply be Alien X projecting what is happening to the universe inside the mind space for Ben to spectate, similar to the portal from their debut episode, but now as a 360.
Destroying just the observable universe is something that would take 2.825 times 10 to the 92 joules, or nearly the force of 3,000 trillion, quadrillion, quintillion supernovae. However, this erasure isn't just a simple explosion. It is quite literally erasing reality, which goes beyond a universe-level feat. At an absolute minimum, passive, casual, universe-level durability and time transcendence puts Alien X's durability at Universal Plus.
Universe creation / recreation. As stated earlier, the Annihilarg completely destroyed Ben's universe. In response, Ben commands Alien X to, quote, fix this, prompting Bellicus and Serena to recreate the universe.
But Alien X can fix this, right?
Fine, but the next time the universe and everything in it is destroyed, don't come crying to me.
The universe is recreated to the exact moment before the Annihilarg first went off, so everyone thinks it never went off. No one ever got to see Alien X in action, and Rook continues to believe that Alien X is a myth.
Everything? Yes, everything. And the universe.
Yeah, not buying it.
There's a few things to note about this feat, as it is perhaps Alien X's most talked about feat, but it is gradually misunderstood. For starters, Alien X didn't actually fail to stop the Annihilarg from destroying the universe. In fact, he never tried. Ben wasn't even completely convinced the universe was actually being destroyed until it had already happened. With better knowledge and preparation, it is very feasible that Alien X could have prevented the Annihilarg from initially going off. For example, if you run a race, but you finish last, then you lose. But if you never participated in the first place, you didn't lose the race. You just never tried. As shown in the Omniverse finale, an already detonated Annihilarg explosion is shown to be reversed, then diffused, showing that even after an Annihilarg goes off, it can be reversed. There are measures that can be taken to prevent its completion. There is nothing to prove Alien X couldn't have done the same. Alien X has already demonstrated time manipulation powers, and could have rewound back to before the Annihilarg detonated, or even better, before the Quantumelia ship even arrived near Earth. Ben also never requested for Alien X to specifically recreate the universe. He simply said, fix this, and Bellicus and Serena followed suit. The two heads have also refused to help Ben in their reasonable means just to spite him.
Teleport the incursions a billion light years away.
No.
Disable the conquest ray?
No.
We have to do something.
And they seem to have developed resentment towards him due to Ben never using Alien X.
I need your power to save—
I don't care.
The whole universe is at stake.
And
so them recreating the universe rather than fixing it could be their way to continue their passive-aggressive relationship, as Ben never disagrees with this notion, or even asks if his old universe can be restored. So while Alien X recreating the universe after it was destroyed is what happened, It'd be false to say that was their only option. To continue this overzealous feat, it should also be mentioned that the universe wasn't created exactly as it was destroyed between the pre- and post-Ben universe. But you should still factor in all of these previous statements. Ben underestimated the power of the Annihilarg by not believing the threat, gave Bellicus and Serena practically no instructions without interference, and never tried to do or undo anything different. Who's to say these changes were unavoidable, and were either a result of Ben simply not paying attention, or more of Bellicus and Serena being passive-aggressive towards Ben?
Billions of lives will be lost.
They probably got it coming.
On a counter note, in a future episode, we see that Ben did in fact take responsibility for the universe's destruction, due to not being able to get a Mr. Smoothie flavor correct.
I admit it, just couldn't get the grape flavor right.
But in the end, we can't definitively say that this was the only possible outcome and the limit of Alien X's power, especially when we start factoring in future feats.
Universe v. Tennyson is now in session.
Multiversal Council. It is later revealed that the Celestial Sapiens have a higher council in which they oversee all major alterations to the universes under their jurisdiction. As per Ben 10 quota, the full responsibilities of this council and what constitutes their jurisdiction is unknown. It is also debatable as to whether this is the council that Paradox reports to, although this would contradict the restraining order Celestial Sapiens have on Paradox. The council claims that Ben is in violation of the Multiversal Preservation Act, in which his recreation of the universe was unauthorized and must be taken on trial. While the events of the Agrigor arc did not seem to have warranted any interference or violation, I have a theory as to why Ben's did. Everything Agrigor did, he practically did himself. Sure, he tricked the trio into helping him a few times against their wishes, but my point is, Agrigor was able to do what he did all with his own skills and ambitions. There was no higher power guiding the events, no predetermined destiny for his path. Agrigor made everything happen. With Ben, he had used Alien X to recreate the universe, i.e. borrowing their own celestial power. Ben would not have been able to do what he did without Alien X. And seeing as how the Celestial Sapiens have such high standards for what actually needs interference, it seems to be that they had a problem with Ben's actions specifically because he used a Celestial Sapien to do it. You could say that Agrigor was the result of the natural flow of events from his universe, as is the universe being destroyed by the Annihilarg, where Ben's actions were an unnatural course of the universe. The Omnitrix almost destroying the universe in Secret of the Omnitrix, Maltruant's interference with the original Annihilarg, Vilgax temporarily destroying the multiverse, all of it is just ants running around a sandbox to them. But what Ben did was change the sandbox in the way the ants never could, and that is what the Celestial Sapiens had a problem with. Teleportation. Celestial Sapiens have the ability to teleport themselves from one place to another, including teleporting other beings, first shown when Starbeard forces Ben to teleport to the Intergalactic High Court. Object creation. While creation may also fall under the reality alteration umbrella, this is the first instance in which we see it demonstrated, unless you count the time Ben created a whole new universe. But anyway, Starbeard manifested a smoothie cup in front of Ben. The whole episode contains many demonstrations of their teleportation effect, but here the cup is constructed right in front of him, showing it arrived by different means other than Celestial Sapien teleportation.
Creating anything would require enough energy to convert into the appropriate amount of matter, E equals mc squared. This violates conservation of mass. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, only its form can be changed. Since this was created out of seemingly nothing, to me this implies Alien X can freely ignore the laws of physics as well.
Meta manipulation. Perhaps the most meta feat from the show, Celestial Sapiens are able to affect the art style of each iteration of the Ben 10 franchise.
Celestial Sapiens change the universe all the time. Even First Thinker Adsma's voice and appearance has changed on at least 3 occasions.
The first 4 series of the show all take place within the same continuity, but one of the biggest differences between them is their art style. But by Omniverse, we are given an in-canon explanation that the art shifts are actually part of the lore of the franchise itself and the work of the Celestial Sapiens. This feat is much larger than what it may seem, as this can easily be hand-waved to only affect Ben's universe. But in Ultimate Alien, we are outside of the multiverse.
It's the universe.
Then what's that?
That is the next universe over. We're in the space beyond.
I thought the universe was everything.
There's always more to reality than one imagines.
And even go to the Forge of Creation, where the art style at the time still determines the visuals. This means that when Celestial Sapiens change the art style, it happens on a multiversal scale, and even applies to themselves. This meta-manipulation also applies to their voice actresses and actors.
Oh man, I am gonna get so busted for this. Oh man. I'm gonna get so busted for this.
Suggesting that every change in the show, be it art, cast, crew, or lore, has been the result of a Celestial Sapien. This feat alone puts them far above anything we've ever seen in the show before, and was first demonstrated as a throwaway gag, showing just how casual of a feat it is for them. It is also stated by Chad Smith that Celestial Sapiens change the universe all the time, and could be doing it at this very second. Celestial Sapiens, despite their code, seem to enjoy changing things around when given the opportunity. So, going back to the Anilarg incident, Bellicus and Serena may have changed things in the post-Ben universe just for the hell of it. I mean, what real reason do they have to change around azimuth so many times anyways? Sometimes things may happen just for kicks, but of course we don't exactly know why they changed the meta of Ben 10 so many times, so perhaps there is some greater reason for it that is beyond our comprehension.
This affects everything in Ben 10. Every alternate timeline, universe, realm, higher dimensions, and even the past, and Celestial Sapiens themselves. Although we never see the Nalgians in Omniverse, they still prove the existence of at least 26 dimensions that matter, in their own opinion.
You only perceive 3 dimensions.
How many are there?
Only 26 that matter. You'll work it out soon, I'm sure.
If these Celestial Sapiens are capable of altering themselves, as well as their home, the Forge of Creation, which transcends the multiverse, plus everything beneath them within the multiverse, this would inarguably prove them as at least low hyperversal level reality warpers.
Shapeshifting. Scaling back down to a simpler feat, when Ben must fight the Galactic Gladiator using the Tetraman Trial of Combat, we get to see some other feats demonstrated that we haven't seen before, such as shapeshifting. The Galactic Gladiator uses this to wrap himself around forearms and trap him, before flinging him high above. The Galactic Gladiator is able to catch up to the rising forearms with incredible speed, almost appearing as if he is teleporting. The Gladiator effortlessly bats around forearms, one of Ben's strongest and versatile combat forms. It is also presumed that the Gladiator is holding back, as one punch from a Celestial Sapien shouldn't do anything short of completely atomizing their opponent. But this is a trial by combat, not a fight to the death. And you know, it would be hard to charge Ben for his crimes if he was dead. Enhanced reflexes. The Gladiator is also effortlessly dodging all of iGuy's lasers, combining his speed with his superior decision-making. Non-practical movement. This is a very weird thing to list here, but I thought it was interesting enough to mention. When Ben transforms into Alien X, the Galactic Gladiator guards himself with a defensive stance. Usually, Celestial Sapiens don't do a single thing unless it is worthy, including something as simple as lifting a finger, or even blinking.
That is the most decisive Celestial Sapien I've ever seen.
Every decision has to be deliberated and then carried out. They don't have tics or quirks or involuntary movement. So the fact that the Galactic Gladiator motioned to take this stance against Alien X says a lot about him. First, it shows that he is indeed the most decisive Celestial Sapien, as mentioned by Serena, as even small actions are easily executed. Secondly, it says that guarding against Alien X is a worthy action. Beforehand, the Gladiator completely ignored Ben until Ben actually threw a punch.
Easy enough to hit a non-moving target.
But Alien X is a real threat to this battle, and he wants to be prepared for anything.
It might be possible that Celestial Sapiens can control their durability, increasing it so they can take more of a punch even though they can already passively tank universes. We don't see anything of note happen, but the Gladiator might be hardening himself in preparation for Alien X's attack. That being said, I don't think either of them are going all out in this fight, otherwise the universe would definitely be destroyed as collateral damage.
Mind space alteration. The more we learn about the mind space, the less it appears to make sense. During the fight, the Gladiator begins punching Alien X repetitively, which affects Ben's gravity in the mind space. There is also now a permanent portal displaying what Alien X sees from his point of view. Another simpler power, the Gladiator is able to fly around the arena, despite the arena having no gravity or any apparent bounds. Alien X is also able to take an endless amount of punches from the Gladiator, although there are many missing factors. We still don't know how much the Gladiator is holding back, if at all at this point, since he is now battling a mutual species. It is also unknown as to what would happen if the Gladiator threw a punch strong enough to affect Alien X at all. He doesn't seem like he would bleed or bruise. Perhaps shatter? Maybe the Gladiator is trying to annoy Ben into making a move, or distract Ben too much to be able to decide on emotion? The idea of celestial sapiens throwing punches at each other raises a lot of questions on the true effectiveness and motivation to do so. The Gladiator manages to punch Ben hard enough to soar into a nearby moon, although Alien X is unaffected. Mono-conscious control. Frustrated with Bellicus and Serena's inability to cooperate, Ben offers a solution. He says to them,
"How about you two keep arguing all you want, and while you're busy doing that, let me control Alien X."
He convinces them to continue their arguments in the background, while Ben gains full control of Alien X's body and abilities, to which Bellicus and Serena agree. From this point forward, Alien X is piloted by Ben, and Ben alone.
I'd like to point out that I consider this both an advantage and a disadvantage for Alien X. On one hand, Ben having full control over the form means he no longer needs to waste time arguing with Bellicus and Serena and can act instantaneously. However, Ben's mind is still that of a human. I've defended him a lot in the past as a surprisingly intelligent character when he's written consistently, as pointed out by Gwen. But even so, there is a limit to what he can imagine.
A little help here?
You said you wanted to do this without us.
I will always stand by Alien X as a powerful character in terms of potential, but Ben actually reaching that potential is a valid question to take into consideration.
Celestial Energy Attack. This is another extremely vague feat, but I did say I would mention everything I can. During Ben's plea to Bellicus and Serena, the Gladiator flies into the air, charges up a sparkling orb with white energy, and flies at Ben. As he flies, the energy engulfs him like an aura. It is unknown what the attack would have done if it landed. Celestial Energy Counter. The attack never lands, as Ben gains control of Alien X just in time and blocks the attack with one hand. By the time the attack makes contact with Ben, the aura's size has multiplied dozens of times, and seems to have needed the Gladiator's entire physical dedication to perform the attack, while Alien X easily blocks the attack with his palm. While we don't know what really happened here, it's apparent that the Gladiator thought this would be a very powerful and effective attack, only to be surprised by how effortlessly Ben was able to block it. Ben proceeds to send the Gladiator flying miles away with a punch, and quickly catches up to him. Ben manages to punch the Gladiator into another nearby moon in a similar manner to the Gladiator, although, like Ben, he appears unaffected. As the battle continues, both Ben and the Gladiator are engulfed in auras as they soar at super speeds through the intergalactic arena. These auras seem to enhance their speed, strength, and durability, as now, instead of creating a crater when punched into a moon, they completely destroy it without losing momentum. Multi-celestial sapien durability limit. The only time we've seen a celestial sapien's durability compromise is when Alien X duplicated himself hundreds of times to escape the clutches of the Gladiator. This suggests that multiple celestial sapiens have a better chance at overwhelming a single one. There is also no discernible loss of power between these Alien X clones. Perhaps it is because they are all equally as powerful that they are able to break free of the Gladiator's grip. Neither Alien X or the Gladiator were able to harm the other one until now, when Ben has multiplied. It stands to reason that it would be impractical for Alien X's power to be divided up. This may be a cheap and easy way to give Alien X an even greater power buff than he already has. This is just pure speculation though. Deliberation limit. Ben, using multiple Alien X clones, is able to finally defeat the Gladiator, but in the vaguest feat we've seen.
He doesn't have any trouble deciding what to do. But what What if he had to make more decisions?
Visually, we see the Alien X clones swarm together into an indestructible energy disk, which on one side engulfs the Gladiator in a green aura, and on the other dispenses out white swirling energy. The Gladiator is unable to escape this vortex of Alien X clones, and after a rippled explosion is now at regular size, defeated at the hands of Ben. This is the most perplexing move we've ever seen any Celestial Sapien do. As stated by Ben, his plan was to defeat the Gladiator by confusing him, creating too many scenarios to the point where he is unable to decide his next move, thus defeating him. But what we saw here, at least to me, isn't exactly that. It looks like they just create a vortex that sucks the Gladiator's powers away, or something similar to that. And as powerful of a move that may be, I don't see how this would confuse the Gladiator. Perhaps that's the point. My guess here is there's a lot more happening here that we are able to perceive, as it'd be impossible for the animators to physically represent multiple confusing scenarios to bewilder the tri-consciousness of a multi-dimensional being. So instead we get this fancy display of effects as a stand-in for something greater. But whatever happened here, it was enough to break the Gladiator's concentration enough so that he slips up and loses the battle.
Possibly the most noteworthy limitation of a Celestial Sapien in definitive canon, even if the Celestial Sapien in question is highly decisive, it is possible to overwhelm them. However, time hacks would nullify this disadvantage against a majority of contenders.
Potential exhaustion. Upon his defeat, the Gladiator drops to Ben's side motionless. The way the scene plays out suggests that he's tired, or maybe even unconscious from the battle. But reflecting on this video, perhaps he's just shocked he was defeated. Celestial Sapiens typically don't do anything without reason, so now that the Gladiator has nothing to do, it makes sense that he's motionless. We can never be sure, but it is highly unlikely that a Celestial Sapien is even capable of feeling exhaustion. But I feel the need to address it in this video anyways to remain fair.
Considering we know for an inarguable fact that Celestial Sapiens can create universes and alter multiverses on a whim, the concept of them getting exhausted, especially by a physical fight that never appears to go beyond a galaxy-level threat, and that's if I'm being generous with the claims of the galaxy in the background, it's honestly a bit ridiculous to think about. More likely he's sulking in defeat.
Lastly, as another point towards Alien X existing independently from Ben, the court then settles to fine Bellicus and Serena specifically for the destruction of the universe.
The court therefore finds Bellicus and Serena guilty of unauthorized universe altering.
As if they really are individual beings beyond Alien X. These court sessions are overseen by Starbeard, a fellow Celestial Sapien, who does not counter and thus sees this as fair, agreeing with the fact that Alien X's 3 personalities can indeed be constituted as individuals.
You know what you must do, Agent 11. Save the universe from Ben Tennyson. Be the hero you are always meant to be!
Alien X's next appearance is unexpectedly in the following episode. We've always had to wait dozens of episodes in between each appearance of him, and it was always at an important moment. But this episode breaks both of these trends and has Ben use Alien X casually. It is also the first time Ben uses Alien X in which we do not see the mind space, and thus we do not see Bellicus and Serena. This suggests that Ben has much better control over the transformation, no longer needing to waste time deliberating with the two. As Rook sums up nicely,
Ben has control of Alien X.
Telekinesis. Ben uses Alien X to break up an attack by his brainwashed friends and other enemies, and first, telekinetically lines everyone up against the wall. Puppet Mastery. After lining everyone up, Ben is able to control everyone physically and make them fight each other. This is a step up from simply telekinetically controlling them, as he is also able to force them to use their powers, such as switching Phil into his Terrorantula form, forcing Alan to ignite a fireball, and Helen to use her super speed. This is the last major appearance of Alien X, aside from a 1-second inconsequential cameo in the series finale, A New Dawn.
All of this means that at a bare minimum, Alien X, strictly from on-screen canon, has passive, universe plus level durability, which can possibly be increased. Regeneration, equally strong if not greater physical attack potency, more likely greater as we see with Skye later on. Low hyperversal level reality alteration, casual, massively fast Flash-and-Light plus speed up to irrelevant speed, coupled with time manipulation and teleportation on top of that, access to nigh omniscient knowledge, or level 11 intellect on my intelligence scale, Class C strength, which is to say moon level lifting strength, if not significantly higher, and likely Type 9 transcendental immortality.
Now that we understand Alien X from a strictly on-screen standpoint, what do the writers have to say about him? As said before, all of the writers have different interpretations of Alien X depending on which era of the show they come from, and they all have different levels of validity. But to be clear, even though a writer may have said something, this does not make it 100% canon to the show, even if they are speaking about the very same version of the show they worked on. Even if some writers worked on the same show together, they are known to disagree with each other. Individual writers are also known to contradict themselves too. They also frequently answer something just for the sake of answering something. We've separated writer statements from pure canon to give you the option to not include these facts when determining your own assessment of how powerful Alien X is. These are also divided based on eras of the show to allow you to choose which one you believe the most, or to mix and match which statements from each category you feel are valid. Let's begin with the UAF era. These statements come from the crew who worked on the second and third series, most notably Dwayne McDuffie, the showrunner of UAF. These statements come from blogs on his personal website, which is currently unavailable, with facts only surviving in screenshots, memory, and select pages, courtesy of the Wayback Machine. While these statements come from Dwayne's site, other writers were known to visit the site and answer questions themselves, such as Matt Wayne, Jeffrey Thorne, and Matt Youngberg. These writers seem to treat Alien X in a very balanced manner, encouraging the idea that Alien X is immensely powerful, but using that power may not be easy as it seems. Mind space. In this video, I've constantly been going back and forth as to whether or not Alien X's mind space is real. From this statement, it appears that Dwayne claims the mind space is in fact a physical place, although this statement is very vague and open for interpretation. Magic. Matt Wayne, a prominent writer for Ben 10, claimed during the Ultimate Alien era that Alien X cannot manipulate mana directly, but they are also able to alter the universe to change the nature of mana, which would allow them to manipulate it. Personally, I believe Matt was temporarily intertwining mana and magic. As solidified in Ben 10 canon, mana is simply life energy, which can be manipulated by anodites, being made of life energy, while magic is the practice of manipulating mana for non-energy beings, such as magicians like Charmcaster, Hex, and Adwaita. Either way, mana or magic, Alien X can overcome this weakness by deciding to do so, so it's not exactly a limitation. Simply put, if an unlocked door is closed, just open it. Other beings. At one point, Dwayne has stated there are more powerful beings in the Omnitrix than Alien X. This is never acknowledged in the show, as in the characters' perspectives, Alien X is the most powerful being in the Watch. But character perspectives do not equal absolute truth, and unless Azimuth says otherwise in the show, this fact cannot be proven or disproven.
The claim that there are beings more powerful than Alien X has been thrown around a lot. What I think many people forget is that Dwayne McDuffie did not consider Alien X to be all that useful at the time. Yes, he was powerful, but you have to run the risk of being trapped motionless for the rest of eternity anytime you try to use them. By that logic, even gray matter is more useful on average. It's also been stated by McDuffie himself that nothing stated outside of the shows are strictly canon. So no, I don't think there are beings more powerful than Alien X in Ben 10, or at least none that were actively planned. It is possible that there are greater cosmic beings out there, but none that we know of canonically. Dagon, Nalagians, and Contumalia are all below Celestial Sapiens. This is not including other franchises, however, in which there are definitely characters as well as entire species far beyond Alien X's most optimistic power level.
The second collection of statements comes from the Omniverse crew, primarily Derek J. Wyatt, the art director of the series. Derek had also been present for the story meetings and had given input that affects the show proper, such as the creation of the Biomnitrix and fleshing out alien homeworlds. These statements mostly come from Derek's Formspring, now AskFM, and on Twitter, although some surviving statements come from Dwayne's old site, back when it was still live. The Omniverse crew focused on downplaying Alien X's cosmic power, or at least they did so when asked about Alien X outside of the show, as admittably Omniverse gave Alien X some of the best feats he's ever displayed. A lot of these statements gave Alien X very specific weaknesses that are not reflected in the show. Personally, I believe believe these statements come from the frustration of fans wanting Alien X to be absolutely unbeatable, and these statements are retaliations to level the playing field and make him more fairly compatible with the rest of Ben's arsenal. The stronger fans wanted Alien X to be, the more weaknesses the writers would give him. Metaphorical debate dimension. My uncertainty about how exactly Alien X's mind space works has been ever present throughout this video. Derek's statement here supports one speculation I had where everything is just a visual representation of what is happening for the audience, and none of what we see on screen is actually happening. This means that everything we see on screen is not one-to-one what is physically present inside of Alien X's mind space, perhaps operating on a fifth-dimensional level or higher. While we do sometimes see Ben physically react to things inside of his mind space, this could also just be Ben's own interpretation of the events as well, similar to the Contumalia, who Ben is not able to see their true forms, so his mind makes him see giant talking smoothies to comprehend their presence. And although this should be obviously covered by Alien X's vast array of capabilities, Derek has also specifically noted that Alien X has X-ray vision and the ability to regenerate a lost limb, which we have seen Galactic Gladiator do previously. Permission. While we do see that Ben was able to convince Bellicus and Serena to give him control of Alien X in Universe V Tennyson, which we see carry over to the next episode, Weapon 11 Part 1, Derek believes that Ben still needs to re-up his permission to use Alien X every now and then, although he is much better at negotiations now. As shown in the latter mentioned episode, whether Ben has direct control over Alien X or still needs to debate, it does not affect his actions and the speed of his reaction in real time anymore. So this has no effect on Ben's use of Alien X regardless. Unner Vladius, the home planet of the Vladats. While we never see it in the show, Derek describes the place as an abandoned world of caves and crypts, with a magical, life-draining core at the center. Following the Vladak's extinction, no being could survive on Unner Vladius as their life force would be drained, including Alien X. On this topic, I feel it is worth mentioning in this video that Unner Vladius exists in canon limbo, so to speak. Unner Vladius was first added to the Ben 10 wiki during 2010 when the website was not as organized, and Vladius was most likely completely made up by a fan. Unner Vladius does not exist in any official media or merchandise, or in any background information revealed in pop-up trivia. However, Derek would later treat Unner Vladius as if it was retroactively canon, creating background information for this anomaly of a planet, even though it's never addressed in the show. Misinformation on the Ben 10 wiki is actually very common, such as them hosting Daniels as Cooper's official last name for over a decade before correcting themselves, and their belief that Ben 10,000 and Ben 10K are in fact the same character, when simple canon logic says otherwise. They also mix and match Prime and Reboot lore as if they are interchangeable when filling in holes for their pages. That leaves this statement trapped in multiple layers of authentic speculation. The authenticity of Derek's word can already be debatable, but now, the way in which Unner Vladius exists and functions is debatable in of itself. I strongly advise caution when using the Ben 10 wiki for information outside of simplicity, like episode order or character galleries. Otherwise, they're just the same as you and I, a group of fans attempting to make sense of the monster of continuity that is the Ben 10 Omniverse. And the Ben 10 wiki should not be treated as an official source and should always have their information questioned. Other vulnerabilities. Despite Alien X's previous feats and capabilities, Derek has elaborated on numerous examples of other aliens in the Ben 10 universe that would be able to affect a Celestial Sapien, such as Gourmands are able to eat a Celestial Sapien and even digest them if they choose to. Nemuina's spell dust would cause a Celestial Sapien to pass out. Vampire can also suck the life force out of Alien X, similar to his home planet. And Celestial Sapiens can also be scared by Topic's true face. For those that need refreshing, Topic's powers is simply that his face is so ugly that anyone looking upon it would be paralyzed in fear. There is no psychoadhesives or hallucinations happening. He's just ugly. Although, Derek has also controversially claimed that Mauve Riedel, a character comparable to, say, a Tetrarchman in strength, intellect, and their cosmic position in the universe, would not be affected by Topic's ugliness because she's seen worse. Going back to the topic of magic, Derek claims that Alien X's powers do not function right on magic, which, following the rules of magic, may actually have validity. As we know, magic is simply the practice of manipulating mana, and should a magician be powerful enough, could create a spell that would counter Alien X's alleged omnipotence. Now, this isn't to say anyone who knows magic can do this. As shown throughout the series, even if you have the right spell, you need to be an extremely powerful spellcaster to pull this off. Just having the incantation alone could backfire if you're not powerful enough. And I'd argue that any magicians that are not on a multi-dimensional level would not be able to pull such a spell off. Should such a spell exist, and a magician with the right skill and power came along to conduct it, I would buy it. Other realities. Derek also claims that a Celestial Sapien's abilities may not work in other realities, and his abilities are bound to his own present reality, even though they are shown outside of any specific reality to begin with.
This also makes little to no sense to me. If we're treating Alien X similar to the old Infinity Gauntlet in Marvel, where he'd only be effective in his own universe, that's nonsense.
Man of Action are the original creators of Ben 10, and have had a heavy influence in both the classic and reboot iterations of the show. While they were less involved with UAF and Omniverse, they claim they were still present for the production of these series, and oversaw all of the stories and writing to their approval. The amount of actual influence Man of Action had on the middle three shows is heavily debated, with some writers claiming that Man of Action was much less involved than what the series may make it seem. These statements come from a 2018 article on their website, along with Twitter replies. Unlike the Omniverse crew, who were interested in making Alien X much weaker than the public may assume, Man of Action took the opposite approach, and view Alien X as far more powerful than what we've assumed. But like all writer statements, they must be reflective on the canon in order to be valid. Mono-existence/Omnilock. Their first claim is that every version of Alien X is the exact same one, across timelines, universes, and independent of any force that limits his ability to exist beyond typical concepts. This means that Alien X exists in the past, present, and future all at the same time, which would explain how Alien X is aware of events far beyond Ben's own comprehension. This statement goes a step further, saying any version of Ben always has access to the same Alien X, even if two Bens tried to use Alien X at the same time.
This would give Alien X a form of omnipresence, so to speak. He isn't literally everywhere at all times, but since we know he can exist in multiple places at once, and transcends time, meaning he could be in multiple times at once, basically every Ben in the multiverse could use Alien X at the same time with no consequences.
Timeline invulnerability. They later go on to state that this also means Alien X can survive the destruction of a timeline due to existing outside of time. While some may say we've already seen this in Omniverse, there is a large difference between dimensions, universes, and timelines, which I go over into detail in another video that I will link below.
Beings who transcend time should go without saying be immune to time or timeline erasure. If you erase a line, you aren't going to magically affect something that is completely off of that line already.
Unnervladius adaptability. They seem to have caught wind of the potential existence of Unnervladius, but they counter Derek's previous point in saying that, if they decide to, Celestial Sapiens can overcome their vulnerability to Unnervladius if they agree to do so, similar to Matt's previous statement about mana. Their interpretation of Vladius appears to be not a planet, but instead a universal anomaly. But going off of this interpretation, whether Vladius be a planet or an anomaly, they claim that Alien X could simply propose a motion to overcome this vulnerability.
Unnervladius is a weird one to me. Ignoring its dubious status within canon or non-canon, I have this theory that Alien X's real weakness is towards paradoxes, which would help explain why Professor Paradox appears to have some sort of advantage on Celestial Sapiens. He is himself a living paradox, both in name and power. Man of Action claims Unnervladius is like an anomaly or a glitch in the multiverse. Glitches break codes and rules. Celestial Sapiens, even though they appear to do whatever they want, still abide by rules. They can bend those rules and warp the laws of physics to their will, but the rules and laws still exist. Those don't apply to a glitch. I think it is because of this that things such as Unnervladius's life-draining force and possibly also magic, which is by definition unscientific, that celestial sapiens might be vulnerable to them.
Potential omniscience. Going bigger, celestial sapiens have the capability to become fully omniscient, which means that they can possess absolute and infinite knowledge of everything. Literally anything and everything. With infinite knowledge, this would give them the ability to foresee future weaknesses and develop counters for them. Although they do not become fully omniscient because they could damage lesser universes, so they all collectively agreed to not achieve that power. Binary omnipotence. They agreed to the notion that Alien X is not fully omnipotent, despite other writers and characters in the show claiming he is. But I believe this boils down to the perspective of omnipotence. Omnipotence, by definition, is to be definitively all-powerful, with absolutely no exceptions. There cannot be any loopholes, hacks, or any form of effect that could negate their power. They are completely invincible with infinite capabilities. Now, in the perspective of anyone from the Ben 10 universe, Alien X is omnipotent because not a single thing inside that universe could ever come close to actually negating a celestial sapien's abilities. They are completely powerless to a celestial sapien's will. But in the grand scheme of the Omniverse, they are not omnipotent. For example, other celestial sapiens are able to harm and defeat each other, even though they are both at the same power level, and thus collectively can be seen as invulnerable. Omnipotence would also account for their individual ability to hurt each other, in which they can. And if we take into consideration with Dwayne's previous claim, the simple fact that there may be beings in the Omnitrix more powerful than Alien X cannot be omnipotent, or else these beings simply would not be able to exist.
I think it's safe to say that with statements included, Alien X goes far beyond his known on-screen capabilities. Most notably, in my opinion, is a statement that comes from within the show itself.
We changed the very nature of space and time.
Emphasizing nature. There are writer statements proposing that Alien X completely transcends dimensions as a whole, which makes sense with the Forge of Creation existing outside of the multiverse. It is admittedly a stretch, and it isn't something I care to argue in favor of anymore, but I do think Alien X might qualify as potentially out-reversal. He has no feats in canon to support that claim, but these statements do point towards that regardless. Paradoxes being a potential weakness of Alien X is also something I really like, and I think it makes a lot of sense for how celestial sapiens are depicted to work. They control reality, rules, and meta, but anomalies break all of that and can cause problems. Life draining also makes sense as Ben has feared Darkstar and Agagor absorbing the powers of Alien X and celestial sapiens before, so even ignoring the anomalous nature of Enervladius, that's probably still a threat.
Longtime fans know that Ben 10 is far from a stranger to the multiverse, and with Ben 10, there's an argument to be made that this multiverse includes the video games, and thus there are feats to be considered. I'd like to take a brief moment to explain how these video games connect directly to the Ben 10 multiverse. For starters, the main games we will talk about are written by Charlotte Fullerton, who not only wrote for the series proper many times, but was the wife of UAF showrunner Dwayne McDuffie, so it's safe to say she has a very solid understanding of the lore. Anything she writes has credibility for potentially being legit. But just to emphasize, credibility for the multiverse, not that the events of the games are taking place in the prime timeline. But that shouldn't really matter when crossing Feats, as celestial sapiens come from a place outside of both the prime timeline and the video game timelines. In Vilgax Attacks, a post-credit scene shows that Albedo had trapped himself as Alien X, unable to transform back to human. This situation is brought up directly by Paradox in the Ultimate Alien episode Ben 10,000 Returns, written by Dwayne McDuffie, where he is describing examples of other parallel worlds.
Oh, there are hundreds of them. A world where Albedo turned to Alien X and was trapped motionless for nearly a year.
The other two worlds mentioned by Paradox are also universes we've seen before too.
A world where Gwen found the Omnitrix. A world where you didn't have to destroy the Omnitrix to defeat Vilgax.
So it stands to reason that the Albedo situation that Paradox talks about in this episode is the very same one we see in the video game, tying it directly into Ben 10's canon multiverse.
Professor Paradox!
No time, Ben. Now is the right moment.
Alien X!
Intuitive Aptitude. In the climax of Vilgax attacks, Ben uses Alien X to stop Vilgax from releasing creatures from the Null Void all over Bellwood. This scene gives us another example of Alien X's intuitive aptitude, where he responds to yet another vague command by Ben, refusing to be destroyed by the raw Null Void energy blast. Alien X first uses time dilation to slow down the laser, eventually to a halt. He then manipulates the portal to relocate and expand behind Vilgax and Siphon, sucking them into the Null Void, destroying Vilgax's ship, before resizing the portal once more to absorb the entire ship. Cooperation. As this takes place in a different timeline, Bellicus and Serena appear to willingly allow Ben to transform back to human without any struggle, as, unlike the Prime timeline, Ben had used Alien X a lot sooner than his initial appearance, and perhaps is developing a better relationship with the two, unlike his Prime counterpart.
The thought that Bellicus and Serena might be more willing to be cooperative with the non-Prime versions of Ben is kind of interesting to me. Why exactly that would be the case, I don't really know.
In one of the 3 alternative futures we've seen for Ben, he has upgraded his watch to the Bi Omnitrix, allowing him to fuse any 2 of his active transformations, granting him nearly endless possibilities. And yes, this includes fusions with Alien X. The Celestial Sapien hybrid showcased in the series was none other than Atomic X, a fusion between Alien X and Atomics. Now, you might be thinking, would any fusion with Alien X have any actual benefits? As Alien X can practically do anything already, you'd be correct in that speculation. Atomics is a pretty powerful alien with significant feats such as one-shotting Ultimate Humungosaur, creating a miniature sun, and going toe-to-toe with Malgax. But none of this even comes close to what Alien X is capable of. So why even fuse Alien X with anything in the first place? If you'd ask Derek, he claims that Atomic X allows Ben to bypass Bellicus and Serena, while still having complete control over Alien X's abilities. This seems like an excellent feat, although ever since the episode Universe v Tennyson, it appears that Ben can do this anyways with Alien X alone. Or at least, dealing with Bellicus and Serena no longer causes him to freeze in place, and can now always deliberate outside of time. However, with Duncan, he believes that any and all fusion transformations automatically means that their abilities are much weaker, including a Celestial Sapiens. How to divide a Celestial Sapiens capabilities by any means is anyone's best guess.
There actually is a way to divide infinity, but it kinda depends on what you mean. Vsauce has a really good video on the topic, and he explains better than I probably can.
I'll link the Vsauce clip down below, but let me see if I can explain this simply. Imagine you have a magical basket of fruit, and you can take an infinite amount of fruit from it. Then we take 2 baskets and start taking out all of the apples we see and separate them from all of the bananas we see. Since the infinite fruit basket has an infinite amount of apples and bananas, these 2 baskets also contain a measure of infinity. However, the infinite apples and the infinite bananas are a fraction of a greater infinity, the infinity fruit basket.
If we say that spatial dimensions are infinite in size, then the volume of space would be omega cubed. This is the cardinality of all units of volume throughout infinite space. If someone could destroy an infinite amount of space, their level of power would also be omega cubed. But let's say you have someone who can destroy a higher dimension, either a 4th spatial dimension or say a finite object in a 5th dimension. They would be infinitely more powerful than the character who can destroy infinite space. These numbers are possible to cut in half, but they'd still be bigger than we can normally comprehend. Omega divided by 2 is still larger than any finite number, be it a Google, Googleplex, Google Duplex, Googleplex, or even Graham's number in tree 3. If there were infinite dimensions, then you could have a character who could destroy all of them, and their level of power would be omega raised to the power of omega itself.
Regardless, he's got a pretty sweet name and design, so it's easy to understand that Atomic X really only exists to hype up the fans, and does not add any actual buffs that would benefit Alien X. But with 3 appearances under his belt, he at least carries some feats I am now obligated to go over.
Not just a bomb, a Chrono-Sapien time bomb.
Multiple timeline destruction vulnerability. Atomic X makes his dramatic debut in the first half of the 200th episode special, and then there were none. Vilgax has just set off his Chronosapien time bomb, a device designed to destroy the infinite universes with the exception of the one they are presently in.
It's designed to wipe other timelines from existence.
Which one?
All of them.
Preventing any alternative versions of Ben 10 from defeating him.
Every Ben Tennyson not from this timeline will be destroyed.
In an ambitious act of heroism, Ben 10K transforms into Atomic X and attempts to disable the time bomb by punching it. This obviously doesn't work, causing him to be erased. This provides another example of Ben underestimating the stakes and paying for it, this time with his life. While we've seen Alien X automatically survive the destruction of one universe, the power to destroy infinite universes is something that he needs to make the right decision on in order to counter this. Although not all hope is lost. In part 2 of this episode, we see the final surviving Ben use the transformation clockwork to reverse the effects of the time bomb, proving that it is actually possible to counter the multiversal wave of destruction.
Let me guess. Chronosapien time bomb? Just figured I'd suck the rebel back in.
As we've seen comparing the Annihilarch situations from the first time Ben encounters one in Season 1, where he underestimates the device, to a much later time in Season 8, where he understands the device and can counter it, the same can be said for Atomic X, and by extension Alien X, in this scenario. As Alien X scales ridiculously higher than Clockwork in just about every category, it is clear that anything Clockwork could do, so could Alien X. Had Ben 10K been aware of the effects of the Chronosapien time bomb prior, and not simply punched the explosion, it is safe to assume that he'd be able to pull off the exact same counter move that Clockwork did in the next episode. So what we can take away from this scene is that Alien X's durability is universal at base level, but beyond that, he would need to know to not underestimate the situation in order to upgrade his durability.
So now you think you are a hero?
I know I am.
Contorting matter. Once Ben 10K is resurrected, he joins all of the good Bens in defeating Vilgax. First by creating multiple black energy spheres to twist and bend Vilgax in an evidentially painful way. It is unknown exactly what these spheres are, but we do see them temporarily distort Vilgax, presumably locking him into place. We then see him showcase some abilities we've previously talked about, such as teleportation and super strength, where he flicks Vilgax miles into the air with one finger.
Vilgax's height has been inconsistent throughout the franchise, but was at least at one point intended to be 15 feet tall, or 3 feet taller than Forearms was supposed to be at that time. Assuming a density similar to that of a human, he would weigh around 3,550 pounds, or over 1.6 metric tons. This is ignoring his cybernetics seen in the original series. If he were knocked back with a speed of 100 meters per second as an example, he'd have 8 million joules of kinetic energy. Atomic X flicking him needs to not only cancel his forward momentum, but also launch him back or straight up into the air, thus requiring around double the energy, or 16 million joules. Again, in a flick. An all-out punch could potentially be 100,000 times more powerful. That, for reference, would be equivalent to a 4 kiloton nuclear explosion, and could be even more powerful if he were flying or using speed.
In his final appearance, we see Atomic X take on one of Ben's most powerful foes, Maltruant, another Chronosapien. Maltruant seems much more powerful and diverse with his abilities than Clockwork, but is still ultimately defeated by a universal attack from Ben in the finale. But during the battle between Atomic X and Maltruant, we can see Atomic X make frequent use of this unknown energy, which resembles a combination of Atomic's nuclear attacks with a Celestial Sapien texture. Maltruant, being a Chronosapien, is able to pause time to his will to avoid attacks and manipulate the battlefield. This makes Maltruant nearly impossible to hit, although there are quite a few times that Atomic X is able to land some hits, showing that, if he's fast enough, he can tag Maltruant before Maltruant is able to counter by pausing time. Between Atomic X and Maltruant, whoever lands a hit first depends on who is able to react first, both of which have shown capability to surprise one another. Transformation vulnerability. Lastly, we do see Maltruant land one final hit on Atomic X from behind, but the result of the detransformation transformation from Maltruant's attack does have multiple factors at play. For starters, Ben 10K is using the Bi-Omnitrix, which he had built himself, not the official Omnitrix, which was built by Azimuth. So we can assume that most features and failsafes that the Omnitrix has may not be included in the Bi-Omnitrix. For example, the Bi-Omnitrix was temporarily disabled by a mere solar flare, something that the Prime Omnitrix has never had an issue with, as it has been around solar flares, and energies much stronger than solar flares, to no downside. My personal theory is that Maltruant's time ray didn't affect Atomic X, but the Bi-Omnitrix itself, and his ray sped up the transformation's time limit, forcing Ben to turn back to human, although it is unknown if it even has a time limit to begin with, and if Maltruant is able to do such a move. The Bi-Omnitrix can also be linked to Ben's own stamina, and there are times when Ben has transformed back to human simply because he is tired. But again, we don't know nearly enough about the Bi-Omnitrix to confirm these assumptions, and when scaling a full celestial sapien such as Alien X when using the Prime Omnitrix, this vulnerability would be irrelevant. This concludes Atomic X's final appearance.
It's hard to say how powerful Atomic X truly is due to having very few feats to work with and heavily contradicting statements. Obviously, he is more powerful than Atomics, but how much stronger is uncertain. If we take the half-power statement seriously, he'd still be way beyond universal, which is very hard to accept without any supporting feats. There are statements that claim that at his absolute limit, Atomics could potentially create a star the size of our sun. He has created miniature suns before, extremely casually, that rank in at a country level of power, so it is plausible he could create much larger ones. I personally think that what Celestial Sapien fusions more likely do is take the existing alien and give them some sort of power boost on a cosmic level, as well as some additional powers like teleportation. Keep in mind this is strictly headcanon, but I could see Atomic X going up to or beyond star level. This would make him roughly comparable to, if not stronger than Waybig.
In the last season of Omniverse, we are introduced to Skird, who latches on to Ben's Omnitrix for the remainder of the series.
It feeds on DNA, and only leaves a host when it wants to.
A Slimebiot, Skird loves to feast on DNA, making the Omnitrix the perfect endless buffet platter for him.
What do you know? You can be pretty useful. Doesn't mean I like you.
While attached to the Omnitrix, he is able to sample Ben's DNA and form weapons out of it for Ben to either use in human form or his other transformations. So anything Skird does is only possible if Ben himself is able to do it. The Contumalia are at least 5D. The Annihilarch, which again can both destroy and create universes, is kept behind an extra-dimensional barrier that is said to withhold the Annihilarch for protection, and as quoted by the Contumalia,
"It is impossible to breach or turn off."
Skird then proceeds to form a Celestial Sapien sword that cuts through the barrier on the first try. This is surprising to the Contumalia, as they've never seen anything like it.
The Contumalia claim that this force field is indestructible, which is in all honesty hyperbole, but as 5th dimensional beings, it is probably far more durable than anything on a lower dimensional level. It is after all known to contain the Annihilarch and universal Big Bangs. Piercing and cutting through or otherwise destroying any 5th dimensional object would require a greater amount of power than destroying infinite 4th dimensional space. Personally, I do not think Skird can replicate powers at 100% of their ability, but even so, whether this is indicative of Alien X's power in a weakened state or his full power, it proves that Alien X is capable of casual 5th dimensional or low complex multiversal plus levels of power on top of low hyperversal reality manipulation.
The 2006 reboot has had the toughest journey being accepted by the general Ben 10 community, but I feel its positive reputation has skyrocketed enough to include Reboot Alien X's feats in this video. To be clear, unlike the video games, Reboot Alien X cannot scale to any version of the Prime multiverse. I have an entire video explaining why, but the main points are the clear distinction between time travel and universe travel, making all 4 of these characters Ben Prime an impossibility. There's also the lack of Professor Paradox and how Alien X clearly works differently than what we've seen before. And if you want to include author statements, Derek J. White has claim that there is no universe in which Kevin wields his own Omnitrix, which goes against Reboot Kevin, who is practically the 4th main character, and as you can see, clearly has his own Omnitrix. However, I will admit, a case can be made for the reboot indeed sharing the same multiverse as the Prime timeline, and I can't stop you from believing that, even though I disagree. The way in which Reboot Celestial Sapiens and Prime Celestial Sapiens differ is too significant to be ignored, and the Reboot and Prime multiverses work best as 2 separate entities. Nonetheless, if you still wish to scale them as sharing the same multiverse, I wish you the best.
Are those Omnitrixes? Indeed. And yours will be the next edition.
A bit of background on Reboot Alien X. In one universe, Ben Tennyson lost Gwen and Max in a battle with Vilgax, causing him to ragefully unlock Alien X.
I proved to them I needed no one, and I would have proved it to the entire Omniverse.
Since then, he's been traveling from universe to defeat and allegedly kill other versions of Ben. He would later take their Omnitrix for his own. I feel like this version of Alien X is the most interesting visually. As with most modern animation, action scenes have a lot more complicated and fluid emotions. But on the other hand, he's not nearly as powerful as Prime Alien X, and while animated magnificently, doesn't carry the same powerful presence as Prime X either. Portal creation. The very first thing we see Alien X do is enter an unknown Ben's dimension through a portal. These portals not only move Alien X through space, but also through dimensions, as this Alien X uses portals to hop to different universes to defeat countless Ben Tennysons. As expected, Alien X has incredible strength, catching an attack from Cannonbolt without stumbling and holds him in place until his inertia runs out. He then shoves Cannonbolt into the rust bucket, knocking it over. He then demonstrates shapeshifting, something we have seen in the Prime timeline before, turning his left arm into a spear. Another new power we see is laser vision, which wasn't strong enough to pierce or damage Cannonbolt, but enough to send him flying a few meters back through some trees. After defeating this version of Ben, Alien X steals this Ben's Omnitrix off his wrist, leaving behind green, glowing burns on Ben's arm. It is unknown exactly how he does this, or if this Ben had the potential to activate a failsafe to prevent this, but this process leaves behind permanent damage, unless treated by a molecular regenerator carried by Maximilian. After removing this Ben's Omnitrix, Alien X merges this device onto a free spot on his body. The reasoning for this is also unknown. It is presumed that this gives him some sort of power-up, but Alien X appears to operate and have the same powers no matter how many Omnitrices he has attached. This could also be done simply as trophies for all of the Bens he's conquered. Spattle manipulation. Before leaving this dimension, Alien X disassembles Max and leaves him frozen and floating in air, with parts of his body disconnected. This does not seem to harm Max, and is also able to be reversed by Maximilian, but without Maximilian's interference, this Max could potentially be stuck here forever. Alien X moves on to the main reboot dimension, housing the Ben that viewers have been following through the reboot, and after tipping over the rust bucket, shows off his levitation abilities. Potential singular consciousness. Reboot Alien X does not appear to have a multi-personality deliberation limit, as he is consistently expressive, talkative, and active. While it is possible that there could still potentially be multiple personalities housed inside, the behavior of this Alien X appears otherwise, especially with how direct his communication can be. He even shows the need to blink. Although there is one line where Alien X says,
"Impressive. Now it is our turn,"
which could be referring to his equivalent of Bellicus in Serena. There's a lot that happens in this special, so even if Alien X did have multiple personalities, it's best left unexplained as to focus on other story elements. Alien X counters one of Forearms' punches with an invisible force, halting his punch dead in its path. This is also the exact same move he used on Maximilian's Ben, who was also using Forearms to fight Alien X before his death. He then levitates Forearms and throws him a few yards away. Telekinesis appears to be this Alien X's go-to power, aside from teleportation. The heaviest thing he has shown lifting is the Adrenaland Ferris wheel, floating it above his head before sending it flying at Team Tennyson. Alien X is also able to evade Heat Blast's attacks via teleportation, which is notably different from his portal creation. Alien X is unaffected by Heat Blast's multiple fire attacks, with his full concentration. Later in the special, we do see him staggered by a Heat Blast fireball, and although it does not burn him, it does push him back. All of Alien X's durability appears to be based on whether or not he's concentrating, as even later, Heat Blast performs an even bigger flaming attack, which is shrugged off by Alien X without hesitation. But after that, he is staggered by a much smaller fireball, which hits him from behind. Aerokinesis. Alien X then extends his arms with gusts of wind that has extinguished the surrounding flames. Moving through the elements, Alien X produces multiple large clusters of rock from beneath the road. He keeps them levitated until using them as a shield to counter Humongosaur's sonic wave attack. The rest of the battle is made up of powers we've already covered, so let's move on. Molecular disintegration. As Wrath throws a box at him, Alien X disintegrates the box as it moves closer to him, seemingly with an invisible field around himself. The box also glows the same way the previous dimension's Ben's arm was glowing after his Omnitrix was removed, suggesting these powers are related. Alien X then fires a laser not from his eyes, but from his palms. This laser cones as it travels distance, right as it blasts through a concrete wall. After Wrath runs away, Alien X punches the ground underneath Wrath with the same energy he fired as a laser, destroying the ground and sending Wrath flying simultaneously. Wrath manages to land a few hits on Alien X at this point, which actually sends him back a few inches with every punch. Although this doesn't do any damage, it is impressive that Wrath was able to do this, as not even the force of a fully moving truck was able to budge Alien X, nor a direct attack by Cannon Bolt. To trek back, Humongosaur was also able to budge Alien X when he used a sonic attack, which was even noted by Alien X to be unorthodox. Both instances that Alien X was staggered seem to be when he was not at full concentration, which plays into the idea that Alien X must be fully focused to make his decisions, or else he can be defeated. The hits landed aggravates Alien X, who then speeds towards Wrath after punching him across the field with a green burst of energy. The fight continues with more powers we've already seen, but Alien X is now determined not to lose concentration, even taking a moment of focus when Wrath is temporarily out of sight. Wrath is then unable to land another hit on Alien X, who counters every attack, then finishes it off by firing lasers from both hands, which cuts every tree in the visible horizon. The rest of this fight plays out with abilities we've already seen, but in a spectacular manner. It really is a shame that we didn't get Celestial Sapien fights that looked this good in the Prime continuity. Tachyon Vulnerability. When trying to steal Ben's Omnitrix, Maximilian fires a Tachyon cannon, which is the first thing to appear to harm Alien X, stopping him from painfully ripping off the watch. However, Ben's Omnitrix detects the danger and decouples itself harmlessly, allowing Alien X to escape with the device, but leaves Ben unharmed. It is worth noting that Alien X is again distracted in the scene, and theoretically could withstand this attack using the same points about his spatial lock limit, but for now it remains to be seen. Maximilian's Tachyon cannon also works against Alien X later in this episode, when Alien X is fighting AF in UA Ben, but he was yet again distracted, although this time the attack manages to keep Alien X down for a few moments, as he lays on the ground unresponsive. In addition to his regular telekinesis, Alien X is able to force grab things using a green aura. This aura appears to give him a wider range of his telekinesis, and inflicts pain on Ben when trapped in this aura, where his base telekinesis simply holds objects in place. The battle continues as more alternative Omnitrix wielders show up, but a lot of the same powers are shown also appear to be more powerful, perhaps by the aid of multiple Omnitrices, or Alien X is just trying harder now. While Big Chill's Ice Breath lands on Alien X's arm, it appears to have no effect on him and is quickly broken away. Light Sensitivity. Despite Alien X's multiple durability feats and types of invulnerability, he still shields his eyes from Team Tennyson's energy explosion, suggesting that he is sensitive to bright lights, and could potentially be blinded by them. Unknown Energy Disc Vulnerability. Alien X is also affected by Gwen's Energy Disc, which was produced from a device given to her by Maximilian. This device could be related to the Tachyon technology, as both Maximilian's cannon and Gwen's Energy Disc are his tools, affected Alien X, and produce green energy. Omnitrix Decoupling Vulnerability. Despite being merged with Alien X's body, one can simply grab an Omnitrix off of him and pull it out, if one can get close enough and find the right time to do so. Throughout the special, Reboot Alien X has been pretty consistent with the idea that his strength and durability is very dependent on his concentration, but this falls apart during the final moment of the battle. While fully focused, and presumably using a large amount of his strength, Alien X rushes at Four-Arms, who does the same, but is overpowered by a double punch from Four-Arms, who who sends him flying back about a quarter of a mile. Alien X has been shown to counter this exact move using his telekinetic force manipulation twice already in this special, yet somehow is susceptible to it now, even though he is not off guard. The only difference we can see is that he only has one Omnitrix absorbed into him, whereas at the other times he had many. So perhaps the amount of Omnitrices he wields really does play a role in how powerful Alien X is. But again, the specifics of how this works is never defined in the series proper, and given that this is the finale of the reboot, we may never know. Alien X is then subdued by Segmenta Sapien restraints, but I'd argue that these restraints aren't really holding him down, and in fact, this is a sign that Alien X has given up. He then transforms back to his human form, aggravated and defeated. This, to me, is him forfeiting his conquest. As with all of his previous feats, it is very believable that this Ben just wants the fight to be over.
You could build something new. A new family. Everyone needs family. Thank you for reminding me, Team Tennyson.
Not that these Segmenta Sapien binds are actually doing anything. Reboot Alien X is a fascinating new take on the transformation, and while it doesn't live up to the legacy of Alien X Prime, I still enjoy seeing him on screen. At times, I enjoy him even more than the Prime Alien X, not just for the visuals, but because his powers appear to be more balanced. I also like how his Omnitrix is green, even though all other transformations in the reboot have a white faceplate, so it separates him as someone special.
The reboot Alien X appears to be so much weaker than Alien X, it's honestly ridiculous. I do have one theory though. We never see Alien X do anything terribly impressive, but then again he doesn't really have any need to do something impressive either. None of the aliens Ben uses in this episode are impressive, and definitely not on a powerhouse level. The closest alien to a powerhouse from the classic continuities that we see is Chromostone, but even he would be no match. Secondly, we see Alien X get overwhelmed and eventually defeated by various Omnitrix users working together. This could be the same weakness used to exploit the Galactic Gladiator, but if that's true, since Evil Ben appears to have full control of Alien X, that just says he personally has difficulty focusing rather than the transformation itself, unlike Ben Prime where we see him casually manipulate multiple beings simultaneously in Weapon 11 Part 1. Forearms overpowering him, however, there is just no explaining that.
Although any specific power level for the reboot Alien X can't be said for certain. The best guess for him would be at least twice as powerful as Alien V, if not significantly more, whether this be from the reboot simply being different, or that this evil Ben wasn't taking things as seriously or lacked the capability and control over Alien X. As for Alien V's power level, we will get to that in the next section.
His weakness to tachyons is certainly interesting. Tachyons are theoretical, fashion-like particles often associated with time. We know from the classic continuity that Alien X is supposed to be above time, so this should have no effect if that is the case. But since this is the reboot, Man of Action could have completely revised how Alien X works, even though that would be contradictory to the whole multiversal thing. Darkseid is another multiverse transcending character who has also had unexplainable changes between continuities.
Like the Prime continuity, the reboot has had its own Celestial Sapien fusion, known as Alien V. Using the Anti-Trix, Reboot Vilgax is able to transform himself into a Celestial Sapien hybrid. The other half being Chimera sui generis, Vilgax's actual species. All aliens we've seen in the reboot using the Anti-Trix are stated by Duncan to be hybrids, such as Hotspot, Quadsmack, and Humongoraptor, although aside from the obvious examples, we never find out what the other half of these aliens' DNA is made of. More information on exactly how this works was presumably going to be elaborated on a future story arc before the reboot was cancelled after Season 5. However, Alien V is the only hybrid transformation where we know what both DNA samples were made from. It is also interesting that Alien V is in fact a transformation, but is also made of DNA from the default user, which is Vilgax. This may be the only example in the entire history of the Ben 10 franchise where an Omnitrix wielder has transformed into himself in any way, shape, or form. This may imply that Alien V is actually an incomplete transformation, and also raises the question on how Vilgax was able to do this, and if possible, why he didn't just transform into a full Celestial Sapien. Vilgax was also able to sustain this transformation even after Kevin took away the anti-tricks from Vilgax, who was in the middle of transformation, so that might have something to do with it too. Duncan has confirmed that during the development of Ben 10 vs. the Universe, the film in which Alien V debuts, the crew considered Alien V succeeding in taking control of the entire universe, despite only having half the power of a regular reboot Celestial Sapien. Personally, I'm glad this didn't happen, as that would mean only half of a reboot Celestial Sapien's power would be enough to conquer the entire universe, yet a full Celestial Sapien can be defeated by a group of city-level transformations, as shown in Alien X-Tinction. He is also defeated by Reboot Waybig, who is claimed to only be able to defeat a small planet, as stated by Joe Kelly, another Man of Action founder. Duncan also claims that Alien V was not able to achieve his full power, so perhaps his universe-conquering feats would have only been possible had Vilgax been given enough time to power up. Aside from an admittably epic design, Alien V does display a few feats on his own.
It's only fitting you witness the unleashing of the ultimate alien.
During Vilgax's transformation into Alien V, the ground around him changes to match that of Vilgax's new Celestial Sapien texture. Later on, in an establishing shot, we can see that this texture has covered the entire Earth.
I've never seen a planet so far gone.
This could be Vilgax's own doing, or an automatic involuntary result of the transformation, as it is unknown if changing the ground around him aids Alien V's power in any way beyond an aesthetic change.
The amount of energy needed to destroy and otherwise possibly control or change the entire surface of a planetary body would be around multi-continental. However, we already saw this process start with Bootleg's powers, so it is unclear to me how much of this was solely because of Bootleg and how much was directly due to Alien V.
The same can be said for the sudden weather change around him, as clouds spewing lightning everywhere now fill the sky, with Alien V at the center. The battle later is covered by a rainstorm, which appears to be intentional by Alien V. A final side effect from the Alien V transformation is Vilgax's sudden growth in size, which also increases his strength and durability. Later on, Alien V increases his size even further to counter Ben and Kevin's attacks. Base vulnerabilities. Despite Alien V's immense power, he is still able to feel pain from an adolescent with only half the regular power of Diamond Head. The increase in crystals is painful enough to loosen Alien V's grip. Omninaut Humongosaur is also able to land an effective hit on Alien V, and his vulnerability to Petrosapiens is doubled down after Kevin lands another successful, painful attack. Omninaut Humongosaur is also able to smack Alien V so hard he loses balance. Adaptive durability. Despite the successful attacks from Petrosapien Hybrid Kevin and Omninaut Humongosaur Ben, after Alien V's increase in size, their attacks are far less effective. Some fail to affect Alien V at all.
I threw my biggest guy at him. It did nothing. I don't know how to beat him.
With this new strength, it takes a Toku star to do some actual damage to Alien V, but Alien V is still able to effortlessly flip Waybig over his shoulder and onto the ground, making it appear that they are matched in strength.
Due to the square cube law, a character increasing in size by a multiplier of n times results in their strength increasing by a factor of n squared. I wasn't able to find the best reference to try and scale Waybig's size, so this is a very rough estimate, but I think he's around 240 feet tall here. Vilgax is a comparable size, which means he grew around 20 times taller. This would take whatever strength he had beforehand and increase it by 400 times over.
Vilgax still retains his laser vision as Alien V, although this laser is easily reflected by Waybig's armor. The reflected laser bounces back at Alien V, which does the most damage on him we've seen so far, staggering him back a few yards, complemented by an exclamation of pain. As Alien V starts to adapt to Waybig's space strength and attacks, he is caught off guard by a cosmic ray blast from Waybig, sending him flying even further than Alien V's own laser vision blast.
Whoa, was that for me?
Realizing this, Ben fires an even stronger cosmic ray, which incapacitates Alien V in one shot, losing the battle. Azimuth soon arrives on Earth and is able to reverse Vilgax's transformation using the Omnitrix. This extinguishes any remaining Celestial Sapien DNA in Vilgax, and as Vilgax is no longer possessing the Anti-Trix, Vilgax permanently loses access to this form. Alien V made for a great finale to the Ben 10 vs. the Universe film, but the utilization manipulation of celestial sapien powers is incredibly underused. Alien V basically operates as a much stronger Vilgax, and does not display any powers involving manipulation of time and space. This could be because Vilgax is not experienced with the power, or since he is only half celestial sapien, does not have those powers, using reboot logic.
If we take Kelly's statement at Weybig being able to take out small planets, then we could say Alien V is at least small planet level since they are roughly comparable to each other, even though Vilgax lost this fight, as silly as it admittedly is.
With how deep the legacy of Alien X goes, it's hard to have a casual opinion on him. Many fans either passionately despise him for complicating the Ben 10 universe to an infinite degree, and others praise his existence by allowing Ben to adventure beyond his universe, and have a very powerful trump card should he need it. Love him or hate him, Alien X is a strong part of what made Ben 10 what it is today, and I hope this video helped guide you through the journey of understanding the Celestial Sapien. Thank you very much for watching and helping us achieve 400,000 subscribers. I'd also like to give a major shout out to Skye for aiding me on the scaling with this video. We went back and forth on this for about a month, sharing notes and making sure we covered every possible topic. This video would not be possible without her, so please check out her channel when you have a chance. I'd also like to address our new X-Tinction Twitter account, which you can follow for important updates, and urge you to check out our Patreon as well. Recently, I've been cleaning up the older chapters of 5YL in preparation for the motion comic, so you can see multiple updates for this weekly in our second tier and higher. Thanks again for watching, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and as always, keep it fizzy.